How are things going out there for you? Are they getting it all back to normal, or is it still?
Well, we're having trouble getting materials,
I gotcha.
and I sees that a year ago I was paying $6 for. Now they're 7.50.
I have seen that a lot of supplies for manufacturing are getting harder to come by.
Yeah,
It's
so
challenging.
it's
Yeah,
a real big problem.
I see.
And then of course AKM had that fire, so converter chips are we're okay until the end of the year. It looks like, but
I did hear about that. Yeah,
yeah, that's a mess, and the other parts don't sound as good.
yeah.
So what are you supposed to do?
I would agree with you there. I do like their chips. I do like what you've done with the converter and the
Yeah, yeah,
converters.
and I'm just hoping one of the parts they were making they're not going to make anymore, and it was just a digital interface, so I can get around that. That's not a problem.
I gotcha.
But it's the AD and DA. Oh, we have a new version. Well, your new version is narrower sounding and it's a little muddy. It's like, and maybe that slightly narrower is more accurate, but it's
They're not.
muddier.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes they're
So it's
not.
like, no, I can't go there.
They need to have somebody like you who's listening for musicality, huh?
Yeah, well, they do whatever they do, but and most everybody is so worried about images being narrowed anyways that
Yes.
it's like you just can't go that
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
You don't want to be overly wide and crazy, but yeah,
Yes.
you want to not lose anything either. So
Yeah, I mean, not to go completely on there, but it's interesting with um, just in the last several years with a lot of the developments I've heard with DAC chips, uh, the distinction or flavor between the AKM, the ESS, these chips, it's very obvious now to me in hearing what they do, and every time I go back to the Avocet with its latest DAC incarnation, it has an ability to be kind of like a um, everything is diced up so perfectly across the stereo spectrum that when you're listening to it for mixing purposes, it's very easy to delineate where things are. It's super, super obvious.
yeah, yeah, and some of it's the jitter business,
Okay.
and yeah, the jitter thing is really difficult to beat. The ESS, they have their internal jitter reduction thing on their chips, and
Yep.
it's like, but you look at the spec on it and you go, well, that's like 20 dB too much at 10 hertz, the phase noise. So the only way I could even consider their parts is I have to figure out how to disable all that crap and drive it.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah,
It's
because that's fine if you got a bad clock to start with, but if you have a really good clock, you just deteriorate things.
that's a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're trying to fix a problem that you might not have in the first place.
yeah.
Um so yeah, I've been digging into the Phoenix 2 plugin, and I how would you compare the Phoenix plugin to, some of your hardware emulations like on the head with the tape emulation? Is it something similar that you're going for, or is it different?
Well, okay, so maybe we had even back up a little bit further.
Oh, sure, sure,
They're,
please.
they're basically the same, but they're slightly different
Okay.
by design. They're slightly different.
Sure,
I
sure.
didn't want the plugin to be an attempt to just copy the hardware,
That's fine.
and
Okay.
yeah, and I wanted to be able to have some more flavors and some more control and stuff. So back when I did the tape emulation for head, I was also at the same time working on some discrete record play electronics for tape machines for ATR service.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and I was still running tape, even when I got my Pro Tools system. I was
I
still,
know the a half-inch tape that a colleague of mine had with your electronics.
yeah, the
Fantastic. Yeah.
ARIA stuff
Yeah.
on it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and that sounds really good. We even made a 1 inch 2-track version of the thing that was crazy.
Okay. Wow.
But and I had it here for a while, and boy, did that somebody sent some masters they did with it, and it was just gorgeous. It was
I
like
bet. I bet.
stunningly gorgeous.
Yeah.
But and even after I had my Pro Tool system, I ran tape still for several years before I even
Okay.
really started using it.
Okay.
And I remember I had a project going where I transferred from tape because, oh, we can fix the timing on that, and then it was like, this is just not sounding good. We
Yeah.
ended up just re-recording it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Well, the
I
early digital stuff, it just, you know, there was a big rush to it, but it just really didn't work all that well, is the
abs-
reality of it.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, anyways, I was
Yes.
working with tape machines and stuff. So, in my background had been tape machines anyway. So, the concepts of, repro EQ and record EQ and the secondary head effects and all of that stuff, and and saturation and stuff, and how and why what happens. I was pretty familiar with all of that. But
Okay.
when I took the approach to do the tape emulation, which
Yeah.
ultimately became Phoenix, it wasn't like, oh, this is the math behind it, and if we do the math, we have magic. It was more like, this is what happens with signal levels and
Okay.
wave shapes
Okay.
and versus frequency, and that's what we need to duplicate. So
Okay.
at the time, it's like, okay, I get this to work on my oscilloscope, then I can go listen to it. And then you listen to it and, listen to the DSP code. And you
So
listen to it.
so wait, back up there when you were saying you can look at it on your oscilloscope. Do you mean to say
Yeah,
yeah.
making measurements.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
sweeping frequency, doing ma-
Okay.
frequency sweeps by hand and
I
looking
see.
at the wave shape and how,
Okay.
how is the wave shape distorting.
Okay.
It isn't just a matter of, well, the math says it adds this much harmonic content, blah, 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 at this level and this frequency.
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily mean you have the right wave shape,
That's an interesting point. I see what you're saying with
because
that.
it's all phase relationships and other
Yes.
stuff going on. So
Yeah.
how the whole process worked in getting there was, I made something, made some DSP code. I would listen to it, use it for a little bit, go back, change the DSP code. and
Yes.
and, and it's a back and forth, a back and forth, a back and forth until I finally went, okay, this is sounding decent.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then you can, okay, well, we can add the brightness thing and the darkness thing, to have some different colors with it, and so it was really much more by ear than anything. And I've talked to people who've, well, gee, I got all of this math, and maybe we could do a tape plug-in together, and we can add wow and flutter and noise and all. And it's like, no, when we ran tape, we wanted to get rid of all that crap.
Sure, sure.
It might be a funny effect, like
Effect. Right.
saying you have a vinyl plugin that just adds scratch scratch, which
Yeah.
is completely useless for most things other than just a funny effect.
It's kind of like getting to the heart of the glue
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah. Well, let's do something so we're dealing with this part of the sound that we like,
yes. Yes.
as opposed to all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And then I figured out a way to do it so when it wouldn't mess with the audio path. If there was distortions in the signal processing, it was distortions of the distortion, not distorting the main audio.
I see what
So
you're saying.
it helped keep that more pristine. And so you're basically adding the distortion components that would normally happen with tape to the audio, as opposed to just mangling everything.
Okay. Okay.
Which, if you take the strict math approach, it mangles everything.
I see.
And it takes the dynamics out, and it just doesn't sound. It sort of works, but I guess if your idea of saturation and color is just to clip and smash everything, fine. But
Right, right.
musically, that's like, okay, we turned the Marshall to 11, and we got our clipped, smashed sound.
Right.
Now what do you? Now where do you go?
Where do you go from there? Sure, sure.
Yeah, you have no dynamics left anymore, and that really doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting.
Well, and see what happened is,
Yes.
and it was before the Just Push Play record came out. I had met Mike Shipley earlier, but yeah, he pushed to get the box because he wanted to have the tape knob for doing those mixes. And shortly after that, Ed Gray from Digi Design / Avid approached me and said, "Well, would you like to do a plugin?" Okay, so we go down this path. We're starting with OS 9, and we got the thing sort of working. And of course, this is the first time through all of it, and I had to have some help. I can write an algorithm. I can't do all the system C stuff. I just don't know enough C programming to go
Understood.
there. And of course, in the middle of all of that, it goes from OS 9 to OS 10, and everything is just like because nothing is compatible and it's a mess. And it's like,
Yeah, that's and we're going there again with the new Apple
oh,
silicone, I
yeah,
assume.
yeah, well, this Apple and their M1, they can go do what to
Yeah.
themselves.
It's
Oh,
it's always challenging with their exclusivity of how they create their product, huh?
yeah, yeah. Well, there's yeah, I got people beating on me. When is this going to run native? Blah blah blah. Well, there's not even an SDK to try to do that yet.
Sure, sure.
So why are you changing to a system that there isn't support for?
Yeah, 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 exactly. That's why I haven't changed anything myself. Speaking of the other plugin, the Heat, could you tell me how that one differs from the Phoenix?
It's actually the details of it. No, actually, I can't tell you, but I can
Okay.
tell you.
No.
But it's just because it's an Avid thing, and
Oh, no problem.
but it's the distortion mechanism's actually done a little differently,
Okay.
and there's a lot more weird side path things going on for air and brightness. And it originally was looking like we were going to have 6 or 8 controls, and
Okay.
Danny Picavo said, "Well, no, 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 we're going to have 2 controls." We talked and worked down to
Okay.
2 controls. So I had to figure out all these tricks to combine these different settings so they moved around with just the 2 controls.
Is it an example maybe where you would use the Heat over the Phoenix or vice versa?
They work well together,
Okay.
actually.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they work really well together.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Um,
so if I'm doing a rock thing, I'll use them. Easily do them both. Use them both together.
gotcha. Um, yeah, a colleague of mine has been using the Europa mic pre and has been really impressed with the slew controls on it
Mhm.
and the ability of that to really help him hone in on his vocal sound with the vocalist. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what the idea
Well,
behind it?
basically, it is an actual circuit that is slew rate limited.
Okay.
And you don't find that kind of thing in audio and stuff anywhere, but you do
No.
find that kind of thing in test instruments where
Oh.
where you want to control a slew rate of a square wave, the
Okay.
rise and fall time for making a measurement. So
Okay.
in the idea how to get there is really not hard because it's just a charge discharge rate on a capacitor. So you build a circuit that does that, and you got to mess with the values so they get into some range that's usable for audio, and then it ends up being another crossfade kind of thing,
Gotcha.
or
Gotcha.
or a mix kind of thing. How much of that do you want to add into the
Yeah.
audio path?
Okay.
And it does wild stuff because if you on that, if you turn the slew rate all the way to slow on there, the speed to slow, I think even at 1 kilohertz, you're starting to be down like 3 dB because, the signal just can't, circuit can't respond that fast.
That fast. Sure. Sure. Gotcha.
But then when you think in audio, well, the high frequency content is very low, so you got to be aggressive to affect the high frequency content enough, but not so bad that it just gets ugly. So it's the hard part is really figuring out usable ranges sometimes.
Sure. Sure. When we started off this conversation, we were saying that a lot of supplies are harder to come by. I know things have slowed down for you, but it, ha, has there been any development for you or any interest anywhere that has kind of led you down a rabbit hole or somewhere that you're looking towards in the future?
I got a couple things going on.
Okay.
Yeah, I always got a couple, more than a couple things going on.
And I don't mean to pry, of course, but anything you feel like
Yeah.
sharing,
One of the things that happened, because I do a judge for the AES student design competition, which
Okay.
is actually a pretty cool thing. I've been doing it for a number of years now.
Fantastic.
Scott Barcy got me involved in it, and it's like I've been doing it since.
Okay.
But uh, I met a young guy, I guess a year ago. He had entered, and basically he had built a PWM compressor and a plug-in interface to control it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and we talked and talked, and it was like, well, he was kind of going after stuff I had been talking about at shows and things for quite a while, and uh,
Interesting.
so it became, well, can I be an intern? And it's like, oh yes.
Well, fantastic. That's super great.
Yeah, well, the problem, and he had this working with Ethernet, which is, USB is bullshit.
Yeah, I've been using the merging systems that uses a Ravenna AES 67 protocol, and I do see a lot of things moving in that direction. So it's interesting to hear that.
Yeah, and this is just for control stuff, because we're working on a hardware box
Okay,
that I don't really want to talk about yet, but we have
sure.
Ethernet control to a plugin.
That's really interesting. So that you would be able to.
Yeah, so like in a mastering situation, or even in a session, uh, all your settings are stored within that we have.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay,
Yeah,
so it's a digitally controlled analog
analog
box.
box, and
Okay,
we're doing it via Ethernet.
okay, very interesting. Well, we'll just
Yeah,
leave it at that. Yeah,
which is more complex, but it
yes,
avoids having to, deal with the USB consortium and paying them money and all the USB driver issues, and it's just Ethernet works.
gotcha. Yeah, I mean the standard's been established for quite a
Yeah,
while.
you do DHCP, it gets an IP address, you're good to go. Well, and recently I've got
Yes.
people beating me on this, the Atmos thing for Avocet,
Oh, okay.
which means, okay, I got to figure out a way that you could do all the channels. And see, with Avocet, if you can right now, to do 5.1 or 7.1, you can do audio boxes.
That's right.
Well, there's a lot of redundancy, because you don't need all that headphone stuff, and you don't, so I'm trying to figure out a way that you could do that. And of course, you want to not change the architecture, the relay controlled stuff, because
Yes.
it sounds better.
Yes. Yes.
So the idea is to come up with a way to do it that's less expensive to get to multi-channel stuff, and not change the sound of it.
Gotcha. So you're getting that request with the Atmos crowd and
Yeah,
more.
well, I've had 3 people now in the last 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
You
Okay.
know, and it's people I respect, and and know enough that okay, got to take this serious enough to look at it.
The accuracy of the monitoring and the quality of the sound, I could only see being extremely beneficial to a multi-channel setup like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the details of, the way I see it, it's going to end up being just here. Okay, here's the straight audio channels. If you're going to do something weird, then you just do that within your system.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. I really, man, I have to say, all my tracks now start with the Phoenix. It really lays down the glue for me.
Yeah, well, it's actually kind of a good way to start, is just put it on each track and put a little bit of it there to start with.
Yeah.
It's really, really DSP efficient, and then you can just work think with things from there. One of the things that happens is, because it is a compression effect,
Uh huh.
with the tape harmonic
Yes.
structure going on in there,
Yes.
is you may find you need a little less compression to make things sound good.
Okay.
Which, yeah, a little less compression never hurts, because then
Absolutely.
you got things more open and it's more dynamic, and it just works better all around.
Sure, sure.
Uh, it is a tricky thing to do that and make it as efficient as it is.
Let me ask you something. One thing I noticed, like with anything recorded with a microphone, a voice, an acoustic instrument, I noticed that the Phoenix, presents a real obvious enhancement. With an electronic instrument, uh, like a soft synth, it definitely enhances it. But I noticed that with the microphone sources, I find the enhancement to be more obvious. Is there something
Well,
to that?
well, well, like, take a vocal.
Yes.
Everybody knows what a voice sounds like.
Yes.
And if you're used to listening to what things sound like, you're going to notice changes really
There
easy.
there you go. There you
Yeah, some of
go.
some of it's just that kind of a thing.
Just that kind of a thing. Sure, sure.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that happens with Phoenix is when you do stereo bus stuff with it,
Okay, yeah, tell me.
because it's really messing with some low level stuff. In some ways, it actually helps with imaging a little bit.
So it is something that you would even use on the stereo bus.
Oh yeah,
Okay. Okay.
just because it can kind of help glue things a little bit, and kind of helps with imaging a little bit, and
Huh.
uh, in a real example, I just did some student recital stuff,
Okay.
piano vocal thing for a local university, and they're
Sure.
doing a video of it, and it's like, okay, I need and because of the video and the way it had to get mic'd, which wasn't the most ideal for a classical kind of thing, but
Okay.
it's like, okay, a little Phoenix on the voice is going to smooth over, and these are 20-year-old kids too.
Sure, sure.
They were really good singers for 20 years old, doing that kind of material.
Okay.
And the voice instructor at the university is like, she's amazing.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, it's like she's
But you're
hearing.
saying like the with a little bit less than ideal of environment, the Phoenix was able to help you smooth over a little bit of
Yeah,
the.
yeah, it
Okay.
helped, because well, the mic's off to the side because you don't really want it, and can't have it in front of her. They're doing a video of it.
Okay. Okay.
So there's really no proximity or anything going on because your mic's 6 feet away, 5 feet away.
Sure, sure.
But was sort of a dry environment. It's a room that was never really built for vocal music or anything or
Understood.
like that, but it's what the university has.
Sure.
And you get to the point, oh, gee, we're a little thin and we're hearing a little bit too much, vibrato kind of issues. And it's a young singer that, okay, let's see what we can do to kind of smooth some of this out. And it turns out that, Phoenix is a really good way to smooth some of that stuff out.
Okay. Okay.
And then you have to think of it in terms of, well, I got a piano and I got that's a nice 9 foot Steinway. But again, there was some issues because normally I'd like to have the lid open and the piano sounding great as it can. But because of what the requirements for this video stuff they were doing, can't do that.
Yeah.
So you end up going, okay, Phoenix is going to change the vocal dynamic a little bit, and the piano is going to be a little thin. Well, if I had put Phoenix on the piano, which was, a stereo mic thing,
Yes.
it helps them blend together.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great example. I mean, I like that. I mean, a lot of the recordings I've done myself have been at universities and various, performance halls and recital rooms. And yeah, it's always a little bit tricky. And sometimes you're left with compromising where you put the mic versus where it's comfortable for everyone.
Mhm.
So having some of those options in mixing is nice. So thanks
Yeah,
for that
well, yeah,
example.
'cause, when it's all about visual,
Yeah.
sound guys are the last one on the list to be thought about.
I mean, I've got a really funny one for you. I was years ago. I was recording a bell choir, and the video crew was moving ladders in the middle of the takes, and they told the director of the performance, "Oh, it's okay. The audio guys can take all that out. It's no problem."
Yeah, right.
So, it's always it's always nice to work with video when they equally appreciate, the audio side of it.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and at this university, most of the time I've been lucky, but it's not far off of the airport, and we got a small air base up here off their flight path. So, having an F-16 fly over the top of the school really
Kind of rumbles
a
things a
lot of
little bit.
noise.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
It's a lot of noise. It's like, just do it again. I'm not
Yeah,
going to filter that out.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's fantastic. What can I ask you? Just curious, when you do choirs or things like that, what kind of mic setups do you like to use for
Okay,
something like
well,
that?
I'm actually using the Josephson microphones.
Oh yeah, sure.
And
Okay,
the 700 S's for the main mics. I have two of them.
okay,
So, I do a distance thing, but they are you basically, because it's X, Y, and not Z, W, X, Y. Yeah, so you got an Omni and two figure eights in each of those mics. So it's
okay.
pretty much mostly a B format thing. So I can play with that after the fact.
I see
And
what you're
then
saying.
for like the solo mic, I've been using this 716.
Okay.
And it's just gorgeous.
So with that main one, you're able to blend between the capsules with the
Yeah,
the
yeah,
B
yeah,
format, and you kind of
yeah,
get what you want after.
yeah. There are a few plugins out there that will take the raw format and put it in a plugin, and it becomes steerable, and you can just do it within the plugin, or you can just set up
Okay.
some fader channels, and you need an inverted channel and stuff, and you could just play with it by manipulating fader levels. But the plugin's easier, because if you get a live concert and it's different choirs, and you can use the automation to,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with their microphones. I haven't used a lot of them. One of their small diaphragm condensers.
C22s.
Yes, that's the one that
Yeah, I
I have
think I
tried.
have. Do I have four of them? I got four of them.
Okay, okay,
Yeah. Oh no, that 700S is absolutely gorgeous.
okay,
It's amazing what you can do with it. I got recordings that I've done just acoustic guitar stuff with it, and you just go, okay, there's just no way you can make it better than that.
oh, fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
audio, and I wanted to thank you for making time and speaking with me. So thanks
Yeah,
again.
well, I'm always available, and I'm very much, let's all learn to make things better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll keep looking to you for your developments, and good luck with everything, and good luck with working with the AES students.
Yeah, yeah, that's been a lot of fun, actually.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
That's been really a lot of fun. So, but it's the whole virus thing's made a mess of, because that guy he's in Austria, he'd be here now, but
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah,
the
exactly.
virus has kind of like made a mess out of that.
Hopefully in the next couple months we can get a little bit more back to normal.
Yeah, right. Let's be cautious. Let's not push it,
Let's be yeah, let's
because let's just make sure we're okay before we start going crazy and create the problem again.
I agree with you there.
Yeah,
We're being
yeah. It's learn from history here.
yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Let's do it calmly and cautiously.
Yeah,
All right. Well, thanks again, Dave.
you're
I'll be
very
in touch.
welcome.
Okay. I'll be in touch in the future.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else you need, let me know.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Yep.